Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, good morning, it's Gemma, and as I record this, it is Monday morning, October 20th, 2025 at 9:58 a.m. I'm recording because I have a patient who is canceled today, so I figured I might as well make hay, while the sun shines. You all know what that means, right? Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or comment on our group on Ravelry. In the warm thanks department, I got a few of them this week in no particular order. First, this one is first, I have to admit. I want to thank Sustainable Living for posting an action shot of my former shacked wheel being used and loved, presumably, by her. It's a lovely picture. It really made my day because I sold 2 of my wheels to her during CFR 11. And, if you're a spinster, as I am, it is really important that the wheels go to good homes and be loved. And this just made me feel terrific that she's enjoying that wheel. I also want to thank Turbo Gal, who supported enthusiastically our idea for a smaller retreat. Now, Turbo Gal, you know what that means, right? Get your buns over here and join us. And I also want to thank our Cheryl, that is Crease 487, because she basically pointed out in my information thread for CFR 11.5, I didn't put the date in. Yeah, that's going to help. Okay. So the information thread has been updated now. Cheryl, you know what that means, right? You have to come. Yeah, you have to come. At any rate, I also want to thank my communities on Finch, on Reddit, on the ground in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys, and of course, most of all, in this group. Those of you who are wondering about my Finch world, the 2 burbs are on the move. They finished the October Mystery Series at the Mystery Mansion, and now one is in Dubrovnik and one is in the Galapagos Islands. And I am having a terrible time convincing the program in Blogger to call them BIRBS. It wants to make them birds or borns, whatever those are. At any rate, the app ID is there if you want to join my buddies on Finch. That is great. I will try to say good morning to you and good night to you almost every day. I work very hard at this. I know, we all need a goal in life. Hey, Dr. Gemma, yeah. Meanwhile, the cognitive fiber retreats are alive and well. If you want information, there's an information thread and a link to it for 11.5, which is scheduled for February 7th, 2026. CFR 12 is scheduled for November 14th, 2026. And it's kind of exciting. Now, I haven't yet heard from the Burbank crew, but they committed, and I'm very pleased about this, to put it mildly. In the November retreat, they are committed to coming back and doing looms and weaving. And they say they're going to bring all sorts of looms, which they can do because they're driving up from nearby. So that is CFR 12, November 14th, 2026. I must admit, I'm really looking forward to that because it's going to be right before the SoCal Fiber Festival, which I believe is the weekend after. And it's going to be right before my turkey trot and right after the Jeepers Creepers and the Santa Clarita 5K. So CFR 12, I will be running like a deer in the early morning coldness and excited about so many good projects. CFR 11.5, I'm pleased about that because we agreed to try this in the winter. And we really tried to avoid everything we could find, including tax season. I mean, we were really scraping the bottom of the barrel on that one, but also knockers up in Northern California. We don't want to interfere with that because I think we have at least 2 people who go to that. And so this is kind of nice because it was funny because someone was really down on it saying, oh, it's the dead of winter. And someone else was really up on it saying, it's the dead of winter. Okay, so CFR 11.5 is what I would call politely sweater weather. It is definitely going to be in the midst of sweater weather. I am researching ragdoll patterns. I had a lot of interest in the ragdoll rehabilitation program, and I thought it might be fun to present information about that. How far we go with that is a question because there is not going to be a lot of fabric options available. Like, it's not like I can just bring fabric for everybody's desires here. But I thought it might be interesting to talk about the ragdolls in a more abstract way. Like, this is a thing you can do if you're crafty. It's very easy stuff. So I've been researching that, and I haven't yet put that on the information thread because I'm tossing it around. But I have been pleasantly surprised by all the ragdoll stuff available. Hey, Gemma, why ragdolls? Well, believe it or not, ragdolls bring together kind of everything we like as crafters. Okay, that's not true. If you're in paper crafting, you're on your own. The thing about a ragdoll, though, is if you are a quilter, if you are a knitter, both of these things, you can do wardrobe for your ragdolls. So there's that. Also, if you have yarn you want to get rid of, ragdoll wigs. They take a big hank of serious yarn. If you are already sewing, whether you're sewing clothes or upcycling pillows like I've been doing lately, whatever, if you're upcycling stuff, ragdoll clothes are great for this. But also, you're going to have a sewing machine, and ragdoll sewing is incredibly simple to do. What about our embroidery skills, Gemma? Glad you asked. Ragdoll faces, ragdoll embroidery. Very, very simple stuff to do. So it hit me that often we wander into a new skill because it's so related to our old skills. Hence, I crochet because I learned how to knit, and there were all these knitting moments where crochet would be handy. Edgings, Russian graft, things like that. This is kind of the way we move from craft to craft. So dolls seem like a really good idea. Simple rag dolls. Those of you who want to vend, by the way, you're welcome to vend with us. But also, if you've been thinking about getting into some vending in your retirement, the rag dolls are a great idea. So that's just a thought. Meanwhile, please be real that the CFR 11.5 information thread is developing, so feel free to check back often. We do have some more information. The sign-up date is November 4th, 2025, so after November 4th, which is coming right up, I will be accepting sign-ups for CFR 11.5 on February 7th, 2026. And I also updated our links. Loretta 1031 is still collecting for her crocheting club, hooks and yarns. So I made sure that that link is still there. And then I also updated my link where I talked about what you'll find at Michael's Crafting for embroidery and sewing. I revised it and updated it. And I also made sure that Drew Caitlin's wonderful link on blackwork resources is alive and well. Yeah, kids, you can do blackwork on the dresses you put on your rag dolls or the clothing you put on your rag dolls. So all of these still apply, and they seem like really good links. I have to add them to my resources list as of yet, but they're really good resources for us to have. So that is the skinny so far on the CFRs upcoming. What's on my hooks and needles, you may be wondering? Well, this week I named the episode Catching My Breath because that's really what I've been doing since CFR. I had to really kind of slow down and give myself some quiet time. And so I've been working on various things. In terms of what is finished, I upcycled 2 of my old project bags. These are not from knitting events. These are from training events that I went to as a psychologist. You can see that I've got a 24-year-old, is it 24 years old? I'm trying to read it from here. I think it's from 2001. Yeah, it's 2001, 24-year-old bag that's been sitting around forever. So I made that into a pillow. That's for the Kern County Incident Response Team. And then I also upgraded one of my Milton Erickson Foundation bags into a pillow as well. And so those guys are now finished, and I believe I'm going to send the Erickson pillows. I got one more to go. It's almost finished. I'm going to send them to the Erickson Foundation and say, you guys, congratulations. I'm fangirling you. Have some pillows. I may keep one. We'll find out. In progress, the stash toss is still at 77 skeins in, 117 out. Yay! Oh, yay! Oh, gosh, yay! I gave away 2 entire sweaters worth. I'm so happy about that, because looking at those in my stash and feeling the guilt of A, not making the sweater, and B, knowing that they were so far down my list because of their color and or texture. Oh, it's so nice to think someone's going to get sweaters, that I just saved somebody, $100 in yarn to make a sweater. One of them was a beautiful cherry red. Forget what company, but it was a good company. I mean, these are wools. I'm so happy about this. Meanwhile, I did spend the weekend doing odd little errands, and one of them was I boxed up and taped up the box to send to the Knitmores for their crocheting and knitting club. I think it's a knitting club that Jasmine is running up at her school. And I also boxed up the kind of weird, unloved oddballs that people gave us that nobody's going to use, big chenille things like that. And those are going to go out the door to Goodwill. And I have a bunch of Lion Brand homespun, which back in the day I used to love. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's going out the door too. Actually, it just hit me. It may come back in the door because I may need to use that to hook a few rugs. I want to make some rugs again for our bathroom, because my rugs I've used all over the place in the house, in some of the strangest places, like under the cat litter box, because it's far easier if there's any spillage to wash a rug than it is to keep mopping the floor and having it kind of seep into the baseboards and stuff. With the stainless steel box with the high wall around it, we don't tend to have that. But I'm just being careful now because experience leads to learning, So anyway, by the way, if you're wondering, yes, when I make rugs, I use very rough fiber. I will crochet with a giant hook like a P as in Peter hook, and I will crochet it against several strands of a size 4 acrylic yarn held together. The reason I do this is the acrylic makes the rug hold its shape without warping, and the fiber will make the rug absorb water beautifully, felt, and become even more solid, and it's all washable. And the more you wash it, the better the thing gets. So this has been an ongoing project, figuring out how to make good rugs. And I mean hard use rugs for bathrooms and the garage and whatnot. And I realized suddenly that I have this pile of acrylic, ugly yarn, and I'm thinking, that would go really well into rugs, since I gave Loretta most of the acrylics she could actually use with her kids. Okay, having said that, that's the stash toss. The Virgo sweater, I am almost done a sleeve. I'm on the ribbing. Oh, I'm so happy about that. And I ran out of yarn. I feel like I'm missing a skein of the Virgo yarn. I bought the Virgo yarn at L'Atelier down in the San Fernando Valley. This is as distinguished from the other L'Atelier, which is bigger and I think is in Long Beach or Santa Monica or something. At any rate, I thought I bought 6 skeins from them, but I've been stash tossing. I cannot find another skein. I also cannot believe that I used up all of that yarn. At any rate, I ordered another skein. Finding Virgo at this time of year was a bit of a hunt. Thank you, Paradise Fibers, for having a skein of it. Meanwhile, I have been working on the September sweater. I am almost finished the left arm there. I'm probably about 9 rows from doing the ribbing. And if you know ribbing in crochet, it's a very different animal than ribbing in knitting, but it works just great. It's kind of funky because you finish the sleeve and then you sort of go sideways. You chain on like 6 or 8 stitches, and then you just do this funky thing and it makes ribbing. And it works really wonderful and it acts perfectly like ribbing. I've seen crocheters warn that it is not like the ribbing in a knitted sweater. You'd never know by me. At any rate, so I am trying to get these two big ones done, the Virgo and the September. And I have a ton of little projects, as you can see from my list. And I really, really want to get through the little projects because by CFR 11.5 in February, did I mention it's going to be sweater weather? So I really, really want to be working on a sweater in the winter when I'm there. And that's just fine. February is vestuary, so there's a high chance at CFR 11.5 I will be working on my annual vest. I have so much vest yarn. My problem is a lot of it is in dark blue. Can you guess what I like to wear? All right, but I'm working my way down things and trying to finish the little projects. And some of them, like the Ragdoll Revitalization, seriously, 15 minutes, that baby would be finished. The alfresco shell, that can finish really quickly. In Dizzy Blondes, I have not been spinning, but I'd like to. I also did a toss of my stash, you may remember, real recently, and I found all these really hard hand spuns that I made from very coarse fibers. Yeah, I think they're about to become those rugs I was just talking about, the crocheted rugs. But I will tell you, if you're going to crochet rugs, do not hesitate to use just a braid of fiber. Crochets beautifully. It really takes a little bit of fearlessness, but it works really well, and they felt beautifully. All of this I am doing on the Electric Eel 6.1, which means you should know that I am bringing wheels to CFR 11.5. One will be an Ashford Traditional. This is a Saxony wheel. It's a bench wheel. I believe it's from about 1994. It spins great. It's been my favorite wooden wheel to spin on recently. It is not an idiot wheel. It is a wheel that you have to work with. You have to know how to spin to use a traddy. But they're fabulous wheels. You can make them do anything. So that one is going to go. I'm also looking at bringing this little antique flax wheel I have. I believe it's the late 19th, early 20th century. It's a parlor wheel. It comes up to about your knee. Could you restore it? Yes, you could. It has one bobbin. Why does it not restore? It is clogged with grease, and I have not done the homework to unclog it, how you get grease off wood. But I believe that's what holds it up. I think this is a very restorable wheel, but I am not likely to do that. And I'm also considering, I still have other wheels I'm holding back that I am looking at seriously and saying maybe they should go as well. If anybody expresses interest, we will see. Let's get on to a strategy, shall we? All right, the strategy this week is about thought stopping. I've been thinking a lot about that because my own thoughts really dived after CFR 11. I came home from this fabulous weekend and just felt down because I'd been with my girlfriends and I was lonely when I came home. Loretta 1031 is listening to this and she is doing a face palm, saying, "Why, Gemma?" And our own Lexicom, who was unable to make it and was deeply missed at CFR 11, I'm going to say, she's probably face palming because we had agreed ages ago to call each other regularly and we don't. Then more girls are probably face palming because I should be phoning them. Oh, there's a ton of people I need to phone. Face palm, face palm, face palm. I'm just really overwhelmed of late, and I'm very sorry because I really owe a lot of people calls. Having said this, let's get back to the thought stopping, shall we? All right, in the thought stopping, usually I talk about reverse serial sevens, which will bring your thoughts to a grinding halt. But I also want to talk about another aspect, which is thought substitution or replacement. And this time what I want to work on is the always never, where you say, oh, I always hit bottom after I do a fun thing, so every time I have fun I can count on just emotional crashing, blah, blah, blah. Wrong, wrong, diddy, wrong, 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 wrong. When you do that, when you do an always never that way, you are really, really programming yourself to have the problem. When you use absolute language. So you want to change absolute language to event specific. So when I say, oh, I always crash after a CFR, no. First of all, I don't actually think that's true. I did this morning. I was thinking about it, and then I realized that I should A, be doing this thought stopping, and B, I was programming myself. That I realized, no, I've come home from CFRs. I remember coming from CFR 9, and that was the one where I restarted CFR. I came home so high, and I was high for weeks. I was so happy that I had revived CFR. I really hadn't expected to ever revive it. So, my always never is simply a lie. And by the way, I'm using a cognitive skill right now that's called research, where you check your alleged facts. I'm always depressed after a CFR. No, actually I'm not. In fact, sometimes I'm really relieved. Sometimes I'm really happy. Sometimes I've been really proud. Sometimes I've been aware how so many friendships have been revitalized and refreshed. So my always never, my research tells me, is just plain wrong. So what do you do instead? When you hear yourself saying or thinking always or never, instead you replace it with sometimes, or right now, or this time. So when I say I came home depressed from CFR 11, that's just not true. And in fact, I was very happy that weekend when I came home. So what would I say? I would say this morning I was depressed thinking about CFR 11 because I want my buddies back. I want to go back to the hotel and just keep hanging out and knitting and eating good food. Which is really a nice problem to have. And I'm about to solve it in February, by the way, so this is good. Now you can hear what happens when I change always or never to today, or right now, or sometimes, or this time. When I do that, I become able to think about when I will solve the problem, when I will be fixing it, what my solutions are, like having CFR 11.5. And I begin to be able to think about research. This isn't really normal for me. And that really takes me on to, so why am I down this morning? And I really think it's something very basic that I'm not going to go into that I'm going to be able to take care of. It's just a minor health thing. So when you stop using absolute statements like always or never, you become able to get a more realistic view about solving any problems you're having and focusing on what's really going on. So if you go back to the acronyms that I love, and we talk about accepts and improve, which are the acronyms for distress tolerance. I woke up distressed and I was thinking about feelings of loss because I always feel bad after a CFR. That was wrong. And what did I do instead? I identified my emotion, the E of accepts, and I realized I'm just down. And I took care of my just down. I did some research, which I just described to you. I drank some caffeine, let's be honest here. My morning coffee always helps my mood. And then I reframed and I made a plan, which is CFR 11.5, or rather, I did a little reality testing by saying, hey, CFR 11.5 is coming. Okay, so that's what happens when you replace an absolute, like always or never, with a specific. You begin to get a workable plan. By the way, those of you who are thinking about relationships, yes, this is why we never say always or never when we're arguing with somebody. You always act like this, or you never give me what I want. When you do that in an argument, same problem. The other person cannot fix the problem because you've given them an absolute. So again, replacing absolutes with specifics always works. Okay, can't say that. Replacing absolutes with specifics is a really good strategy to stop destructive thoughts and to redirect yourself to productive thinking and relief. Oh, shoot. Oh, yes, I'm running again. And we did the Jeepers Creepers 5K. Thereby hangs a few tales. It was lovely. You can see my time because I was trying to use one of my running programs that doesn't coordinate well with my watch. So I'm using the actual application from Apple. And it's pretty accurate. I would say it's a little inaccurate because I had to walk in the very beginning. But I was using a program for moving from a 5K to a 10K. Because I finished my 5K program yet again. This is probably about the 15th time. Which means that I'm running 30 minutes nonstop and I'm really enjoying it. And I want to stay at that for a while and see if I can move my speed up just a little bit. However, this is a program to get you to 10K, and it insists that you run 10 minutes, take a 1-minute walk, 10 minutes, etc. And you do that 4 times. So I was doing that during the race. And considering I did that, that's a pretty good time. I came in under 14 minutes per mile. And I was really booking pretty well. I had negative thoughts for the first half of the race. I have no idea why. It's mostly downhill It's a very, very gentle downhill, but it looks more downhill than it actually feels. Let me put it that way. So I'm pounding along on asphalt, downhill into this creek bed from Heritage Park. And I'm thinking about, oh, it's going to be all uphill on the way back. And as always happens on this course, because I've run it for several races now, and I've run it for pleasure, on the way back, it doesn't feel like an uphill at all. I don't know what it is about this course. It's something about my depth perception. Did I mention I don't have any? And my feeling in my legs. Anyway, it was a great course. The problem I had was more with my breathing, that I was having trouble catching my breath. Hello, asthma. And it's cold and exercise induced. And yes, I was carrying albuterol. No, I didn't spray it. I sprayed it before the race. Should have taken a puff, I have to say, during the race. Oh, things you learn. My son ran the race after running the day before the Space Rock Trail race. He did brilliantly in the Space Rock. He came second in his age group. And the course that took me hours, because I have no depth perception, so I kept slipping and sliding. He ran 13-minute miles on it. He really did a great job on it. I didn't realize he'd come in that fast, so I was teasing him, so much Sunday morning about, you're acting like an old man. Come on, you're 19 years old. You can run 3 miles 2 days in a row. I don't know, man. He was heroic, and he did a respectable time in the Jeepers Creepers, although I haven't looked him up. But he came in way ahead of me. I think he was doing 10-minute miles. I found him at the finish line sitting on the ground eating street tacos, which they gave us for free as part of our payment for the race. They also gave us 2 really funny-looking pieces of clothing. A race shirt that was beautiful and purple and had all this spider webbing on it, except it had a big, ugly mummy zombie running across it. And they gave us a jacket to go with us. Now I realize why. The jacket is very, very lightweight. It's not quite a windbreaker. I wish it was a little more, can you believe I'm saying this, tightly woven or plasticky than it is. But anyway, I realized a lot of people were wearing it over their race shirt because it was cool running in that creek bed. Lesson learned. At any rate, we did do the Jeepers Creepers 5K, and there's even more to say in the blather about that. Upcoming is the Santa Clarita Marathon's 5K. I believe we're both doing 5 on that. I don't think he's doing a 10. That is on November 9th, which is about 20 days out as I sit here, and I'm looking forward to it. In the fluffy books, I finished Wrong Witch to Hex With by Molly Harper, and I'm working my way through Hex Around and Find Out by Molly Harper. These are first and second books in a series. I believe there will be a third. They're interesting. I don't know why. They're just not really that tasty for me. The reader, not so great, but not really bad. They're just a little darker, and she's trying to make up her own rules around sea fae, the fairies of the sea. It feels a little shaky to me. So they're okay. They're very light and fluffy. They're very good for listening to at night. One of the things that does kind of annoy me in the inclusivity range here, yes, she tries to include non-white people. I respect this. No, they don't have personalities. You really feel like, oh, here's a character. They're on the sidelines. Oh, I'll make them black because I should have a black person. Okay, nice start, but I think it would be even nicer. Well, her characters are kind of light to begin with. I'd really like them to have a little more personality. It's a start. It's a start because I think people just see the world in their own racial tone. And it comes across really painfully because we've had a culture that is dominated by whiteness. It comes across really painfully when you're white and you're doing it because it just feels like yet again we're practicing racism and exclusion. So, I'm looking forward to the moment where we all write books where all the characters are fleshed out with real personalities, and you don't feel like it's just, here's your token black character. I feel like we did that in the 60s and 70s, all those detective dramas where the bad guy was always the black guy. Yeah, those. I really wish we'd kind of move on past this, just saying. But, the books are okay without being sensational. Something I really like, I'm going to say it, Parenting Payoff. There's a picture of my beloved son and I holding up our race medals. And I looked at it yesterday. We're both really tired. You can see we both look sort of glassy-eyed. But I looked at it and I suddenly realized this is a dream come true every time we do it. I have a picture framed on my wall over my desk of, it's a multi-picture actually, that I put together with Photoshop of our first race that we finished, which was the Santa Clarita 5K. I believe it was in like 2018 or 19. I was so excited because I raised a child I could run with. No, I can't. He's way faster than I am. He just humbles me. But I was so excited because this is a great healthy habit. And it also is a representation of success in parenting, that we like each other, we run together, we have our own rituals around it. And this is what you get from years of working with your child and recognizing their humanity and trying to let them be who they are as much as you can. I experienced this last night because we realized he's not doing well in his history class down at the community college. And it's because he won't talk to the professor because it's hard for him to talk. And we had this really interesting thing where I walked in on him arguing with my husband. And I started using Cog-B therapy. Like, what would you say to this professor if you did talk to him? And he did it all wrong. And I talked like a professor. I said, I'll be the professor. We did a role play. And then my husband started saying, but you need to tell the professor you have accommodation because of your language issues. And then we changed the rehearsal. By the end of it, my son, my husband, and I were all tired. My son said, well, this is really bad. He was doing the pessimism because it's bedtime, and that's when we do it in our family because we're all tired. And I found myself doing reality testing saying, but it's not bad. You actually just started a good rehearsal, what you would say to the professor. And I'm a good professor. I actually have that experience, and I'm telling you, this is what it sounds like to a professor. And the minute you change to, I have accommodation, I need your support, the professor becomes on your team. That we're legally obligated to be on your team, but most of us who are decent human beings want to help you. We don't want you to struggle. And also, as a professor, I'm going to tell you, I loved it when students came for help. That was the student I wanted to work with. Students who just didn't come for help and then failed the class or got a low grade, showed up in my office thundering and angry and threatening. I don't like those people. I'd F them without any problem. I used to tell my students in my first lecture that you'll get an F by showing me disrespect and by not taking the consequences of your own behavior. I had a more colorful way of saying it. But anyway, I had this real strong sense yesterday of parenting payoff. That first, we did this great race together, and second, we worked together to help him solve a reasonable problem of a college-aged young person dealing with authority. And I thought, this is the payoff. When you feel like, oh, it's so hard to have kids, they'll never grow up. Well, they do. And your work is going to work out if you're giving them a lot of love and attention and appropriate supervision. And that's hard when you're an adult. It's hard in our culture, which doesn't support families by and large. And if you're doing those things, there is a payoff. Don't give up. Meanwhile, put a lid on it. Nothing. I really should cook. So on to the blather. Well, I didn't tell you last week about Mudslide 2025, and this did influence my feelings about CFR 11, which is really unfair. It happened after CFR 11. What happened, Gemma, you may wonder? Well, I came home, and it poured rain this past Tuesday. And that's not too bad. In fact, it's great for us. We're on the side of a mountain, so we're not going to flood, except we are now under the burn scar of the, I think it was called the Hawk Fire. You may remember when I was in Tehachapi for that race, there was a fire that started about 500 feet away from our front door. Yeah, well, it left a scar. And suddenly on Monday after CFR, we got an evacuation warning because they were actually concerned about mudslides. I did not think it was likely. To my surprise, my husband took it really seriously. I don't want to belabor the point, but it got ugly. First of all, he went out, he left his phone home. He said he would be home, he wasn't able to get back. I was facing the wrong way. If there was going to be a mudslide, I was looking downhill. So I'm thinking, this is cool, nothing's going to happen. That's when the power went out. in the middle of a session, of course. So the patient was good about it. We reestablished contact using batteries, but I said, this is not going to work for the rest of my day. I expected to relocate to a parking lot, put myself on a VPN in Iceland. I usually am on a VPN from Iceland, and see my patients. That did not work because I went out to start my car. It would not start. All right, this led to a week of getting the car repaired, and there went $2,000. Apart from replacing the battery, we really did need to do a lot of servicing on it. Oh, it was a complicated week, let me tell you. And that's all over, and I'm actually feeling okay. Thank you very much. But that really flavored, shall we say, the past week. The good news was that I did get in runs on Monday and Wednesday, and that meant I was in pretty good shape for the race on Sunday. I can't remember what happened. Oh, Friday morning we took the car in to get the repairs done. So that actually worked out okay. And that meant also on Saturday, because of the race, I had to go down and do a packet pickup because the boys were at my son's race. And that was very nice. And then I went over to Michael's because I knew I'd gotten it wrong when I talked about embroidery supplies at Michael's. So I did a much more careful review, and I revised the comment I made on the thread for CFR 11's information. And the link is in the show notes. But I did revise that and update the information in there because it's important because, yes, a lot of us in the listenership are doing things like embroidery, and Michael's is doing its best to replace Joann's without becoming Joann's. And I must say, I also picked up a mini iron, which I've wanted forever. It's a little tiny iron with steam that you can use right next to your sewing machine to do a quick press on seam openings and things like that. So I'm very, very happy. I got a seam ripper. I have probably 5 of those around the house. Everybody needs a 6th. It's kind of the sewing equivalent of tape measures where you're always losing them. Yeah. On Sundays, we did indeed do the Jeepers Creepers 5K. And afterwards, we went back to Eggs and Things. And you can see the pictures of us at Eggs and Things in the show notes. I once again had that fabulous omelet. And to my shock, the woman waiting on us said, "Weren't you here last week with a big group?" Yes. Yes, we were, Monique. Thank you. Generous tip. After that, I was just wiped out. I realized that I needed a break. I wasn't going anywhere. So I sat around the house. I took a long, hot Epsom salt bath. And of course, that put me to sleep. I sat in my wonderful rocking chair thinking I would knit, and after I dozed for a few hours, we had dinner. It was just a very peaceful day, but I did finish editing the show notes for this, and I just did general little picking ups and errands around the house, and it felt terrific. So it's been a very peaceful week of just catching my breath, and a weekend that was just very relaxing. You can see all the usual links. I'm not going to keep going there, including my calendar upcoming. I have been trying to identify next year's races and doing early entries because they're a lot cheaper. I signed up, I believe, for next year's Be the Light, and it was like $40. And I may have signed up for the Santa Clarita 5K. I need to go check that. At any rate, I was doing that, and that was very nice. So, Minerva gets the last word. You can see a picture of Minerva being cheerfully distractible. Minerva wants you to know that she was imitating me all weekend and just getting distracted by anything, kind of squirrel. And so there she is. She was so pesty. She was jumping all over my desk and my craft table, just throwing everything to the floor and demanding love and demanding more food because, yes, she is on the automatic feeder diet and she is not happy about it. She has found the treats and she tries to open them by herself, even though they are sealed with a little zip sealer. She will sit there and spend time trying to open the treats. Oh, my Lord. Because, of course, she'd rather have the treats than a regular food, even though they're just dry food. So I finally relocated one of the wand toys, and you can see her playing with a wand toy because she was trashing my study yet again. And I realized all you can do with a highly intelligent, very determined cat is distract her. And I feel like that's been my theme song all week. So the idea is when I look at Minerva, I realize that she often is like me. Like, you didn't get that hint already? And I'm often like her. And that's because we are in community together. We have learned from each other, even some of our worst habits. And we are both cheerfully distractible, and we have to act like a community where we move with each other and we respond with love and kindness to each other. And so I help to distract her. And that's what you get when we are in community, when we support the community. We are supporting the individual. And the individual, when they support the community, is not losing anything. Having said this, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.